Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to configure the Actions Runner controller on OpenShift so that we can process workflows from our GitHub Enterprise server. Now, this is the third video in a 3-video series. The first video, we installed GitHub Enterprise Server on Azure. The second video, we installed OpenShift on Azure and integrated the two, networking. And this is the final one where we're going to be configuring the Actions Runner controller. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. All right, so let's go ahead and install the certificate manager. So under operators, we'll go to operator hub. And from here, we should be able to just search for certificate manager right here. And we will install that. Install that in the default namespace. OpenShift operators is fine. And go ahead and get that installed. This will take just a few moments. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and create our key pair for certificate manager. So that would be OC, and I'm going to switch into the project of OpenShift operators. Yep, and then create secret TLS CA key pair cert equals ca.cert, and then my key equals ca.key. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and view the operator here. All right, very good. And then under cluster issuer, because I want it to be cluster wide, I've already got this written off screen, so we're going to create a cluster issuer, and we'll just do YAML view. Yeah, and paste in my details. Let's make sure that's lined up properly. There we go. And yep, there's the secret key pair. Okay, great. Go ahead and create that. Now the condition is ready and we're ready to move on. All right, so we got our cert manager loaded. Let's go into our GitHub instance. This is newly installed and we don't have any organizations at all. So let's go ahead and we'll create 2 orgs. And the first org, we'll just say org 1. And we'll create another org. Well, let's, I think we gotta add that. Oh, owner, okay, that's fine. And now we'll create a second organization. New org here, and we'll just say org 2. All right, new, there we go. Already on there. Okay, complete the setup. All right, so now I should have, okay, I got it. I should have 2 organizations, org 1 and org 2. And org 1, if we take a look at that, we'll see that we also have everything enabled here from a actions perspective. So all repositories are able to use actions, and that will be the same thing on org 2. Our actions are configured. We've got 2 orgs, org 1 and org 2, that we're going to use. And now we can go ahead and do our install. And I'm going to use kubectl to do this. And the first thing is I'm going to install the runner controller right here. And this is version 0.26.0. And the reason why I've chosen this one is because it works better for multi-tenancy. And we're going to have one controller manager controlling runners that are supporting 2 separate organizations. All right, so we're going to have runners here and runners there, completely separate. That's managed by one controller. So that's one reason. Well, that is the reason why I'm doing this. All right, so that's should be like that. That shouldn't take too long to install. I will also mention that you see here where it says replace force. This part is important because OpenShift has some limitations on the annotations in size, and when you force it, it'll go ahead and bypass those. All right, we need to set the environment now for our server. So this is kubectl set environment deploy, and then we are github.ocpnow.com, namespace in actions runner system. All right, so we've set our environment. Now if we go into here, and we can see that in our actions runner system, and scroll down here to our deployment. And then if we select our deployment, we'll see those environments right here. All right, so we got that set. And then we can set our privilege access. So we're going to do that. These are all going to be detailed as well. So that's been done. And now we'll create a, we'll need to have a token for our controller manager. I did forget that. So let's go back to our user. And from our admin user that has access to both of those repositories. All right, so under developer settings, let's create a personal access token, generate a new token. It'll be non-expiration. We'll just say this is GitHub ARC controller manager, or just ARC controller manager, that's fine. No expiration. And I want to make sure that I have a few privileges set here. One is repository. We're going to need, do I need workflow? Yeah, so workflow, admin org, because we're going to cross organizations, so I need that. And then we need org hook, notifications, read public key, read repo hook, and that should be good. I think that's all we need. Generate our token, and then copy this out. And then here, we'll go ahead and create that OC create secret controller manager from literal equals GitHub token equals, and then our token. Did I not type that right? Create secret. Oh, I forgot the secret type. Create secret generic. There we go. All right, so we need this secret. It's going to be looking for that. And now we can go back to our controller here, and let's go ahead and delete these and see if we can get a new one to fire up. And there we go. So that one's running. And it should clean up all of these. All right, so essentially we need the certificate manager. We need a couple of settings for the environment variable that targets our GHES instance, and then we need to set privilege access. So that's been done, and then of course we need this secret with our personal access token. All right, so clear. Now we're done. We just got one controller manager here that's set up that can run pods across multiple organizations. So let's go ahead and we'll deploy a couple of those. And the first thing is we're going to create a GitHub app in each one of those organizations, and those will control our permissions so we don't have to create more personal access tokens. All right, so let's go to org1 and we'll come down here to, okay, so now we can create our GitHub apps, and a quick and easy way to do that would be to use a URL script like this one. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in our GitHub server, github.ocpnow.com, and then our organization, and this one is org1, and this will already have the settings in place for us. So you can see it's going to just set this as the main URL, and then it has all the permissions that it needs, and all you do is you copy that into a new tab and drop it in, and that should get us logged in right here. So we're back to this, but now we've got all those permissions already set, including the homepage URL. So that's all in there, and all of our permissions are set correctly. And then we can just do ARC org1. Call it whatever you want. And create GitHub app. Now that one's done, and we will want to capture a couple of things here. The app ID equals 3. And then we want to generate a certificate down here, generate your private key. allow. All right, so that's been downloaded. And now we can go up to install our app, and we're going to install it into org1. And you notice org2 isn't here because it's a private app, all right, which is fine. So let's install it into org1, give it its required permissions. And then at the top, if you go all the way to the end, you see this number. This is the first app we've installed. It's going to be number 1, and that's what our install ID is. Equals 1. We're going to need that too. All right, and then when we do our second org, copy this, and we will do org2, like that. Give it the same permissions. And this will log us into org2. And we could just go ARC org2. Again, call it whatever you want. All the permissions and everything have already been set here. Scroll to the bottom, create our app. Now that's done. And then we will go to the bottom, same thing, generate a private key, come up to the top. Let's capture that app ID. App ID equals 4. And then our install ID will likely be 2, but let's go ahead and we'll install it. Again, you see org2, org1 isn't here because they're private apps, and we'll install that. Come up to the top URL and you'll see number 2. So our install ID is number 2. So now we're back to our organization, and if I hit refresh, we'll see that we've got one app, which is org1, and if we go to org2 and look at its settings, and let's go down to apps here. We should see app 2. There we go. All right, we're org2. Okay, so now we got to set up our files for the runners. And in both cases, we're going to, let me get out of this, clear. These are going to be secrets that we're going to generate. All right, so I need to, let's copy, let's go to, yeah, let's copy, there, move, and we'll do downloads, and I have ARC org1 pem, move that here, and then org2 pem, move that there. We should have both keys. We do. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our new secret. So kubectl create secret. And let me write this out for you. And from off screen, and we're going to drop this in the actions runner system namespace as well. And here's our app ID. So our app ID 3. The installation ID for this one, 1. And then our GitHub app private key, which was ARC org1 for this first app here, .pem. So this is going to create that secret right here, this one. All right, so that's done. And then we'll do the same thing. Clear that out. And then we'll come here, and it is 2. And the install ID is 2. And our app ID will be 4. And let's go ahead and change our name to org2. Okay, OC get secret. All right, we can see that they're both loaded right there. Okay, so now we just have to create our runners. And we can drop them both in the same resource or in the same project with our runner system. We don't have to put them somewhere else. I'm going to make this just a little smaller. There we go, that looks better. All right, so we're going to drop them all in here, and the pods should spin up. Okay, I went ahead and wrote out a couple of the YAML files for runners, and if we look at the podman one, we'll see that this is going to go into org1. Here's the secret for org1, I'm labeling it podman. It's going to go in the default runner group. And if we take a look at that, if we go to runners, runner groups right here, this is org2. It already has a default runner group. We can go ahead and create a new runner group if you want. We'll just say OpenShift. Let's do that. And you can select all repositories, or select all repositories, or just specific repositories, workflows, blah, blah, blah. You can do a lot of that. All right, so that's OpenShift. And let's go ahead and we'll just change all these to OpenShift. All right, change word. That way you know for a fact it's in there. All right, so it's going to add these runners to the OpenShift runner group. It's going to create a label, podman, so that when you want to target this specific runner, if you've got a bunch of runners in here, I can just label it podman. You pull one of these runners. And we're going to use the horizontal runner autoscaler with a busy threshold setting. And here's the secret again. You need it in both places for the API credentials. And this one is org1 podman HRA. And then the name of the runner deployment is right there, which is right here. All right, so that one's done. Go ahead and save that. And then under the default one is exactly the same, except it is for, if I can type, we'll change this to OpenShift as well. But this one is for org2, so to go in right here. All right, let's go back to org1 because I need to create that runner group. Now that I move the settings, actions, runner groups, new runner group, OpenShift, and we'll enable all repositories. There we go. All right, so we've got those. All right, so let's go ahead and kick those off. We'll take a look at our project here and see if anything errors out. Hopefully nothing does. OC create podman. All right, we've got a couple of podman containers here spinning up. All right, so that's good. Everything looks solid. Let's go ahead and check our runners. This is under org1. Let's refresh that. There we go. We got 2 runners. And these are 2 podman runners. That's great. Okay, so let's do our default one. OC create -f default. And this should load 2 runners in our org2. Those are being created right now. That one's up. And that one's up. And if we look at org1 again, and I refresh this, I only see those 2 runners, org1 podman runners. Okay, looks like my license needs to be updated. All right, let's take a look at org2. And under org2, settings, actions, runners. There we go. We got our 2 default runners here. So essentially what we've done now is we've created a single controller that can manage runners of different types. So this is actually Red Hat based podman runner. And this one here is the default SummerWinds runner. So 2 separate runner types, assigning to actually the same group name, which is OpenShift, and but in 2 separate organizations. Now let's just kind of test one of our runners. So if we go to, let's say, where am I at? org2, that's fine. We'll create a new repo. And we'll just say test repo, and we'll put a README file in there. All right, and then let's go ahead and we'll just create a test action. Simple workflow, and blank is fine. Let's get rid of, well, that's fine, we can keep this. And I'm gonna do my push, or my trigger event. I'll leave a link here for a demo on how to use actions. But we're going to say workflow dispatch. Like that. Move it over. Okay. So, oh, it's already got one on there. Okay, that's fine. I didn't see that. Now let's get rid of some of these notes. And that's all right. Build self-hosted would target any runners that are labeled self-hosted. But if you remember, for org2, we also called it default, right? So you can put in that label here, default. Now, the default is because I labeled it default right here. All right, so if I labeled it something else, then I could put that in there. If I left it self-hosted, then all the self-hosted runners within this org that have access to this repository are already labeled self-hosted. So I'm just trying to differentiate the runner that I'm using it on. I could also say runs on OpenShift because that's in our, I believe that's in our, no, I can't do that because that's my runner group and I need to label that OpenShift. So that's my runner group. So it would need to be labeled default here or self-hosted. All right, so let's just do default. Okay, and then checkout's fine. Oh, this is a simple little hello world, right? So echo hello world, multi-line script, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and commit that. That might run. Take a look at our action, and then we'll go CI, and we'll just run that workflow. And so now it should trigger our self-hosted runner. There we go. So we got a runner now. And it'll queue up, and this is again org2, so that's one of these two default runners. If I can get to it quickly, because it won't take very long, let's go to runners. We'll see which one is active, which is this one here. It ends in HH, right? So looks like it might be done already. Didn't quite make it in time. It's just now got a very big workflow. Yep, see it finished. And all that completed just successfully. So we've got hello world, the basic script there. It kicked off. You see it built a new runner because they're ephemeral. So it's going to do its job and then rebuilt a new runner to take its place. Okay, so let's try the same thing, and we'll do it on org2 with a podman runner. So we'll go back to orgs, org1, and then here I'll need to create a repository. Test repo is fine, and then add a README file to it. Create the repo there under actions, simple workflow. I'm going to take out these, and then we'll leave that. And then see, we can leave this self-hosted if you want, but just to again kind of show you, this is going to be a podman because the podman ones are in org1, and we'll just run the hello world. And actually down here, let's add a sleep command, and we'll say run sleep 1000, and that gives us a little bit of a chance, I think, to kind of track it down. All right, so then under actions, we've got our CI workflow here. We'll go ahead and start that, and we'll see if it gets picked up. There it is. And if we go into this job, all right, so now we know that it's running, and I might even be able to see which one it got picked up on. So LGX, let's come over here, LGX, so it's this runner. And if we go to logs, we'll see that, we should see that the job got picked up. Running job build, so that's our build job, which is what this one here was called. All right, so it's actually, that runner is running that job right now. And when it's done, it'll delete that podman runner and then create a new one in its place. With this video series, we went ahead and talked about building GHES on Azure. We deployed that in two ways. We also deployed OpenShift within Azure, and now we've configured Actions Runner Controller to be a single controller with runners in separate organizations for our GHES implementation. And actually there are two different types of runners. We have podman runners and the default SummerWinds runners. We've talked about labels, and we did some test actions so you can see that work. In the repository here that will be on the the OCP dude repository, I'll have all the instructions for this video series, and I'll also break it down. So if you just visit this later, you'll see part 1 video. I think down here I'll have part 2 video once I post it, and then I'll put the part 3 video for the Action Runner controller in there with links to these packages like this one here. So definitely check these out if you just want to run some test packages. And I've also included the Docker files themselves if you'd like to learn about those or modify them for your particular use case. All right, so that's it for this video. I really hope you got a lot out of it. It was a lot of fun building it. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being a part of the OCP Dude channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, see you later.